Hi, my name is Mitch Mitchell. I am President and CEO of T.T. Mitchell Consulting Incorporated. I have been in business for 15 years. Today is my 15th anniversary, and I decided I would do kind of a special video. You know, I do a lot of videos on this channel talking about leadership and diversity and all these other kinds of things. Healthcare is a big one. And I thought that, one, I want to talk about why I do all those things and why I've stuck with my business for all these years. And I also want to tell the story of how I ended up coming here to begin with. So back in 2001, I was working for basically two hospitals that were in Wayne County, New York. One was like a 54-bed hospital, another one, I think, 125 beds. And we were affiliated with a hospital system in the Rochester area, Rochester, New York area. And I was home on vacation, and you know, sometimes you have that spidey sense, something tingles, and something was tingling on a Wednesday morning, and I just went online, and for some reason I decided to look up the Rochester newspaper online, and there was something in there saying that my hospital system had closed one of the hospitals in Rochester. And I just knew, even back in January, I had a feeling they were going to close a hospital. And the CEO at the time kept saying, nope, there's no plans, there's no plans, there's no plans. But sometimes I just have these premonitions. So it was closed. I contacted a couple of people I knew at the hospital I actually worked at. They hadn't heard anything. And then within pretty much 10-15 minutes, I started getting emails from all these people saying, oh my God, we just got the notice they closed the hospital. So I had a feeling that my department, which was the patient accounting department, I was also over collections, registration, whatever, but I had a feeling that my department, there was going to be trouble. And back in January, when I first had the thoughts that something was coming down, I started thinking, you know what, maybe I need to look to the end of this year and think about going out on my own or doing something else, because I just had this feeling that my position wasn't going to be stable. I had done well. I mean, I had helped that hospital bring in a lot more money than they ever had. There's this thing called days and receivables. And when I first started there in 1995, the days and receivables were around 195 days. And I, at one point, had brought it down to 40. And then there's all this turmoil and stuff that happened. We moved on to a new computer system, had to retrain everybody, a whole lot of other stuff, which I wrote about in a blog post. And I'm not going to necessarily rehash all that, but I'll link to it. So anyway, I knew something was coming. So one day in May, I get called and asked to show up over at the CEO's office, our particular hospital CEO. So I go over there, and there's this other guy in there from Rochester, and I knew, okay, this is the day. So they start sitting down, and they said, well, you know, our administrator of finance, he's left, and we've decided that, you know, we need to incorporate some things and move some things to Rochester because the state came in and they're looking at us, and we're going to need to take, you know, people from your department. So a couple of my departments were moving to Rochester. So they were talking about moving all these people into Rochester, whatever. And I said, okay, and what about me? And they looked at each other and they said, oh, geez, we hadn't thought about you. And I'm thinking, wow, how's that for gratitude after 6.5 years? My goodness. You know, I was corporate compliance officer. I was director of patient accounting. I'm the guy who basically recoded what's known as a charge master. I had done all these things. I was on a couple of committees in Rochester, and they had totally forgot about me. So they said, well, we'll let you know by the end of the week. They hadn't thought about anything. So the end of the week comes, and they said, well, here's what we have for you. We're going to offer you a supervisor position in Rochester. You'll have to take a 25% pay cut. We don't know what you're going to be supervisor of, though. But you'll have to keep regular hours like the other people, which means you'll have to work from 8 to 5, and you'll have to punch a clock. And I'm thinking, wow, I've never punched the clock. That's one. Two, I live in central New York, Syracuse area. So to be in Rochester every day, you're talking about me driving 90 minutes or more every day to be there at 8 a.m. And I was going to lose all my perks that I had as a director. I couldn't be in any of the organizations that I was already in, that I'd been in, because now I wasn't going to have that kind of authority. And like I said, they didn't even know what they wanted me to do. I didn't think that was a good career choice. So I basically said, no, I don't think so. I think it's time for me to move on. So I decided to move on. Now, I'm not going to lie. There were a couple of other positions open at other hospitals throughout the area, and I did apply for those, but I had pretty much decided I wanted to go out on my own. So on June 24th, 2001, I went downtown, city of Syracuse, and I got a business license under T.T. Mitchell Consulting. And this is where it is. In 2007, I was incorporated, and when you're incorporated, you now get to call yourself President CEO. I have I have a thing this big of all my business papers that say that I am the President CEO. I am the majority stockholder. I'm the only stockholder, but I can actually dole out stocks in my business, which is really interesting. So that's what led me here. And what has kind of kept me here over all these years are a couple of things. The first thing is that as I have gone and visited a lot of hospitals and a lot of other businesses, I've realized that I am not necessarily the best choice to be an everyday employee along those lines. You know, when I'm a consultant, as a consultant, you get to go into places and you're one of two things. Either you're kind of a person in charge or you're equal to the people who are in charge, because you go in to try to get things done. Whether it's teaching people how to do certain things or whether it's working with other people to make things better, that's one of the things that you end up doing. And an everyday thing, you know what? That's just not necessarily me. Also, one of the things to learn if you ever decide to go into business for yourself, and you're in business for a while, is that at a certain point, if you're used to doing certain things, you're kind of unemployable. And as strange as that sounds, and people find that hard to believe, in a way, I'm unemployable. There's just no one who can pay me the kind of money I've had. There's nobody who's going to want me to work for them based on the experiences I've had. And trust me, I've talked to some people who have always asked, why would you give up what you're doing without really understanding what it is I've done? So it's a tough thing. It takes a lot of guts to do it in the first place. And it takes some great perseverance to do it. Then there's part two. And part two is that there's a lot of things that I care about, that I want to talk about, that I want to write about, that I want to work with people about in these different areas. For instance, I talk about leadership a lot, in my videos. And this is video number 96 over the years I've been doing this. And most of them have been on leadership. And I talk about leadership because, you know what, not that I necessarily have to tell you this, you know, there's a lot of bad leaders. There's a lot of bad leadership. There just is. There's tons of managers who have no idea what they're doing when it comes to leadership. They may be technically good, but they just don't know. There's a lot of people who are scared to become leaders, or there are people who are hoping to become leaders, but they have such bad examples to follow that when they get those opportunities, they really don't know how to handle the job. So that's one of the reasons I talk about leadership. It's one of the reasons I've written 2 books on leadership. One called Embrace the Lead, and the other one called Leadership Is and Isn't Easy. Because I really am passionate about this subject. I love to talk about this subject. I've spoken in 9 states, and I've talked in, let's see, at least 8 of them on the subject of leadership. One of them I've talked about diversity, and that's another thing. Why do I talk about diversity? Well, 1, okay, I happen to be black. 2, I'm probably one of the best people to talk about diversity. I was a military kid, and one of the things, at least back in the day, was that everyone was kind of the same. I mean, you had black, you had white, you had Asian. You probably had a whole lot of other things that I didn't necessarily know what they were because it's not anything that you talked about. In the military, you don't talk about all these different kinds of things. You talk about the positions. Dad was a master sergeant. You got staff sergeants, you got tech sergeants, you got captains, lieutenants, majors. You have your rank, but you don't have a lot of conversation about race. You did when my dad first joined in 1949, but you didn't, or 1948, I'm sorry, but you don't now. Or at least you didn't when I was a kid. So now I've gotten out into this world, and look at what we have here in 2016. We've got a candidate who's basically wants to block a whole race of people, who's insulted another race of people, and you have a lot of people agreeing with that. Just today, or a couple of days ago, I was reading this article where there's a guy in Tennessee running for office talking about let's make America white again. Really? You know, I don't make these things up. The thing is that diversity is not only about race. Diversity is about age, it's about sex, it's about income. I was on the board of an organization called Arise for 12 years where it was talking about people with disabilities. There's tons of things about diversity. We need to see each other as equals, or, you know, we need to treat each other fair. There's going to be some things that are hard to overcome, but we need to do that. So that's why I talk a lot about diversity. I talk about customer service, and I write about customer service because how many of us have dealt with lousy customer service? How many of us has dealt with good customer service? We know when we're being treated well. We know when we're not being treated well. And sometimes it's us who are either doing well or not doing well when we're interacting with others. So I talk about that a lot. Healthcare. Well, I have to talk about healthcare because that's my background. Now, I have written a lot more about how to generate revenue and how to bring in cash and how to set up a business office. I've done that. But you know what? I have also written and spoken about leadership in healthcare. I've talked about what the major problems are in healthcare. And you want to know something? It's not really hospitals. It's definitely not the ACA, although there's tons of people who will lead you to believe that. There are a lot of things that happen in healthcare that people just don't understand why it's so tenuous. And this is not absolving any hospital or doctor for bad behavior. I'm just telling you that it's a lot bigger issue than you think. Pretty much like everything else. Education is probably a lot bigger issue than you think. Politics is actually a lot bigger issue than you think. But healthcare just happens to be something I know, along with leadership, along with diversity, and along with a lot of other things. So those are the main things that have kept me going and kept me wanting to do more. Now, I also do social media. I write, you know, I have between 4,000 and 5,000 articles online, but I usually talk more about that stuff on my other channel. And yet, you know, it's still part of the corporation. I had a business for a while, a secondary business, which was concentrating on SEO, search engine optimization, for those who aren't familiar with that. And writing. I still do writing services. You know, because I'm just one of those people. I like to write. I like to, you know, keep going at this kind of thing. You know, there is the thing where it says that if you're self-employed, you have that opportunity to, you know, make more money or to control your life a little bit better. I'm going to tell you the truth. It's a mixed bag. I've had some marvelous years, and I've had some pretty bad years. And, you know, it ebbs and flows. It goes with the territory. I mean, I've had times where I have made this big dollar amount per hour, and then I've had times, 2009 was a rough time, when people, you know, organizations were offering me these insulting dollar amounts saying, well, you know, this is what we're going to offer, because they figured they could get people on the cheap. And a lot of those people who got someone on the cheap suffered, because you get what you pay for. That's another thing you have to remember in business, is that you have to charge what you need to charge to live, to be seen as a professional, and to be able to buy stuff that you need. You need gas, you need food. In today's world, you need insurance. That's just how it is. So these are the reasons that I kind of stick out here. And I, you know, made it to this 15 years. And, you know, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not always easy. It can be fun, but it's, you know, it takes the guts. It takes the willingness to be able to open up your mind to doing sometimes some things that you might not have necessarily thought of, but it also takes a lot of courage. You have to keep your ethical base, because there's things I refuse to do, and there's things that, you know, I just haven't done. You know, it will really challenge you. But I'm here, and I can't see myself going anywhere right now. And I hope that more people watch the videos. I hope more people read the blogs. I definitely hope more people buy the books, seminars, products, whatever. And I hope we can have a conversation. And I hope to do more interviews. And let's just see where this goes. So I'm happy. This is my anniversary, 15 years. And I've linked to the last, and actually only other video I did talking about an anniversary, which was from a couple years ago, where, you know, I did 13 lessons. And there you go. I'm also going to link to the blog post that I'm writing about this, so that you can go back and check that out. So there it is, anniversary time. I'm done. Y'all take care.